Are you confident still in this one big, beautiful bill strategy?
I want the one big, beautiful bill. I think it makes it a lot easier for us to try to negotiate for some of the big ticket items that we're looking at, whether or not it's looking at American energy independence and the policies and the regulations that we're going to have to pull back for that, or we're looking at our border security. Look, I am a Texas representative. That is of utmost importance. But we also have to look at how much we're spending. And that really needs to get taken into account. I'm a Ways and Means member, so I'm on our tax subcommittee, and we are looking at getting that tax plan through. The last time Congress passed 2 reconciliation bills in a year was back in 1997 when that Speaker Gingrich had, a 40-plus member majority, and he had some people peel off. We can't afford that this time. So I would like the one big, beautiful bill, but if it's going to be 1 bill or 2 bills, I just want to make sure that we have it and we get it done.
Well, and it becomes a question of timing as well. The speaker yesterday, after leaving meetings at the White House, suggested we could see details today. It seems that timeline has moved to potentially as late as Monday. Congresswoman, what is the latest you've heard from leadership as to when you and your colleagues can expect to see details?
Well, we had a meeting this morning with a whip, and he was very clear. They were at the White House yesterday, and they're still negotiating this. There's no definitive answer right now, but it does seem like we are bringing all sides together. Everybody has had an opportunity through the speaker to have a voice. They have all been asked, what are your top lines? What's important to you to have in this bill? Everybody has had an opportunity to come forward and talk about what's important in their districts. We're looking at also making cuts, and there's a lot of people who are holding fast and hard to. We want to see a deficit neutral bill, and that is going to be tough. But I'll tell you what I've seen the last couple of weeks, with this DOGE effort, this concerted effort to get cut through the waste, fraud, and abuse. I think now I'm more optimistic than ever.
Well, I do want to get to DOGE in just a minute, but if we could zero in on the tax cuts specifically that are being looked at, especially with your seat on Ways and Means. We heard reemphasized from the White House yesterday that the president still wants to see what he campaigned on. No tax on tips, overtime, Social Security, add to it, getting rid of the carried interest tax break. He wants to see the SALT cap lifted. Are all of these things going to be able to work their way in a bill realistically, or is Ways and Means already thinking about things that might need to be left out, at least for now?
I think what we're doing is it going to be 1 bill or 2 bill? What can we get in the first bill? We want to make sure that the provisions from the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act are extended for obvious reasons. If we don't have those extensions, you're going to see 90% of American taxpayers have one of the largest increases in our American history as far as tax goes. We want to avoid that. I think people showed in November that they not only were interested in what was happening in the safety of their communities, at what was going on at the border, but they also were concerned about what's happening at the economy. So is it going to be a strategy where we're going to have to negotiate? Absolutely. But I think what they're doing is they're putting all of those things on the table, and they're saying, where can we negotiate? Is it the SALT cap? Are we going to lift the cap and have it no limit? Or are we just going to make it just a limited amount? Are we going to extend it from 10,000, a little bit upward? All of those things are on the table right now. I think, people may be going home, but nobody's leaving without having meetings and without having further discussions.
Well, and then there's the pay for discussion as well, which you were alluding to, that steep spending cuts are expected to come with this. If it's the size and scale, though, that some of the most fiscal conservative members of your conference would like to see, is there a world in which entitlements are not touched at all, or is that necessity at this point?
Well, I think what we're looking at, again, is the waste, fraud, and abuse. If you look at USAID and the fact that they have, 46% of their budget is overhead and entertainment, that is absolutely a place that you're going to be able to save money. I'm very excited that our new DOD secretary is looking at having an accounting of all of the dollars that DOD is spending, and making sure that we're having an audit. Those audits need to happen across agencies. I've introduced legislation that would have third-party audits. I think it's really important. I can't imagine even Democrats arguing that they are not for cutting waste, fraud, and abuse. And as much as you hear them thumping their chest about Elon Musk, they're thumping their chest saying that he's an unelected, individual who's making these concerted efforts. I'd tell them at the GAO, all of those people are unelected. They're just not doing their jobs, and they're getting paid taxpayer dollars. So I'm excited that somebody's coming in and looking at where the waste, fraud, and abuse is. But what they haven't done is they have not defended any of the cuts. Americans need to understand where their taxpayer dollars are going. And I think what they've shown just in the last 2 weeks is absolutely outrageous, and people want those things cut.
Well, Congresswoman, not only is Elon Musk unelected, though, he actually is a contractor, his companies are, with the U.S. government. So it adds in kind of a conflict of interest question that isn't necessarily present for other ordinary government employees. And whether it's that or this notion that in some ways Congress, your body, which controls the purse strings, is the one supposed to be able to decide what appropriations are going where. Is there no area yet that you've seen Elon Musk overstepping the bounds?
He's an advisor. He's an advisor to the president. He's not a cabinet member. He doesn't have an agency that is being paid taxpayer dollars to go in there and make these recommendations. He's an advisor. Make no mistake, the person who is in charge right now of the executive office is President Donald J. Trump, and he is taking all this advice into account. If you think about it, even the advisors that he has had, he's had 8 years to look at people who he trusts. Elon Musk, like him or not, is a very successful businessman, and he understands, where to be able to cut and where to be able to flourish. I think he's had great results, and the president is taking those into account. But we have an elected man at the helm in the executive office, finally, who is making those decisions. And it's surprising to me that Democrats haven't asked the last 4 years who's making the decisions, because it was very obvious it wasn't President Biden, and they didn't seem to mind then. But all of a sudden now, this presidency, this administration is very transparent. You know exactly what is being offered, what's being discussed, what's on the table. And as a result, you're seeing results, every single hour, it seems. This is a fantastic administration so far. And I could not be more optimistic and hopeful about where they're taking the next 4 years.
Well, I'd like to ask you what's going to happen just over the next 4 weeks and change, maybe a little bit longer, as we're looking at a mid-March deadline here, Congresswoman, to keep the government funded. And we heard about this from the House Minority Leader, Hakeem Jeffries, today discussing the ongoing budget debate. This is what he said, and I'll have you respond.
I get it. Republicans have been busy. There's an ongoing internal GOP civil war around the budget. They have to get serious about sitting down with Senate Republicans, Senate Democrats, House Democrats, and the administration in order to reach an agreement in advance of March 14th.
Congressman, are you confident that a bipartisan government funding agreement can be reached in time? Do you need Democrats for this one?
The threats that I've heard from Hakeem and his Democrats that they're not going to help. They don't care if the government shuts down or not. They just want to be able to point at Republicans. And as far as his comment about there being an internal civil war with the Republicans, no. We're doing something that they don't normally do. We are having thoughtful debate and discussions. We are all trying to represent our constituencies and our districts. We're not all sheep. What I've seen, though, in the Democrat Party is an absolute civil war where they're throwing everybody under the bus, where they just had a very embarrassing loss in the presidency. There's a reason why right now Democrats are not in a majority in the Senate or the House, and why they lost the presidency. The internal civil war is going on there. We're having thoughtful debates. We want to make sure that we bring forward a reconciliation package in a budget that reflects the needs and the focus and the priorities of the American people. I think that's exactly what we're working on right now.
Could you put odds, Congresswoman, in our final 30 seconds on whether or not it actually is appropriation bills that can be passed by mid-March, or we're going to need another continuing resolution?
Well, we had a meeting with Tom Cole today, and he talked about the importance of making sure that we have appropriation bills passed. We'll see. But we want to avoid a government shutdown. But at the same token, we have to do our job. We cannot continue to keep having continuing resolutions. We need to look at government spending. We need to make sure that's under control, look at the regulations, look at where we can cut, look at the waste, fraud, and abuse. But we also need to make sure that we're doing our job.